Hello, Copenhagen. Hello, YouTube. And
Welcome.
hello, little YouTube in there, big YouTube at the back there, because this is going out live to all of you through the medium of, being in the room.
Yes.
And also, we are live on Tech Bugs and Rock and Roll on YouTube. Hello, folks watching there. And also, the camera at the back is going to put this on the NDC channel. So there are people out there who are going to watch the same show in 3 different ways.
Yes.
How about that? Now, I want to start off with something which I don't think we've talked about on the show before, but you see the little intro we had there. There's a thing at the end where it's just me and Mark smiling with the logo in the middle, and I needed a picture of Mark smiling because there aren't any pictures of Mark smiling. And eventually I thought, Mark, I need you to find me a picture that one of your kids took of you at Disneyland. And 2 seconds later, this picture comes back, and it's great, and it's Mark looking really happy, except he's cuddling Donald Duck.
Yes.
So I had to Photoshop Donald Duck out, so that's what the logo in the middle is.
I can't believe you Photoshopped Donald. It should have been you and me and Donald Duck.
We got sued by the Disney Corporation, and you know it. They don't like that. So, quick piece of audience participation. So, Winnie the Pooh? Apparently, so Winnie the Pooh here in Denmark is called Peter or something, right? And in Norway, he's Ulla Brun. And what's Winnie the Pooh called in your country? Anyone who's got a different name for Winnie the Pooh? We got any others? Or is that just the 3? We got one? Not a Pooh in Sweden. Cool. All right.
He's called Winnie il Pooh in Latin.
In Russian, he's Winnie Pooh.
Winnie Pooh.
Winnie Pooh, because there's no the. He can't be Winnie the Pooh because there's no definitive article. So he's just Winnie Pooh.
And I know we said we're not going to do politics, but in China, he's called He Who Shall Not Be Named. Which is hilarious. I mean, Yeah. Imagine being so insecure.
Anyway, so welcome to the show. So what we normally do with this is we just chat about the stuff that we've been doing and what we've been working on for the last week and what's happening in tech and coming up in the news and all that kind of stuff. And you know what we've been doing this week because you've been watching here us with all of you, and you've been watching most of it. But how did your talk go? What was your thing you were doing here?
Yes, I did. They asked me to do the meetup on Tuesday night before the conference for the cheapskates who can't afford proper tickets. And it's all right. I'm not talking about them behind their backs. I called them that to their faces. And I gave them the finger and everything. But no, it was a brand new talk that I have kind of had in the back of my mind. And it's sort of on the same subject as the Albatross project, which is going to be the lock note tomorrow. Except it's the kind of more factual this, that, then this, then, yeah. But it's basically, it was called How Simple Is As Simple As Possible. And it is just an entreaty to everybody to stop overcomplicating everything. If you need to build a landing page that says, hey, I've got a mobile app coming out in a month, you don't need 3 megabytes of SPA runtime and Lord knows what else. You need a static HTML page and a post that goes to an Azure function that sends you an email or adds you to an Azure table or something. And yet we get these ridiculous things. But it's not just, it's easy to pick on front end because they have to break the world with an NPM install every time there's a new CSS feature. But it's also, infrastructure. Do you really need Kubernetes? No, you don't. No, you really, I'm filling in your side of the conversation here. No, you really don't.
But how are you going to orchestrate your containers?
Then. Sorry?
How can you possibly orchestrate your containers without Kubernetes?
There are these amazing things now, which are basically just give us a Docker image, we'll run it. And okay, fair enough. They are running it in Kubernetes. It's like if you use Azure Container Apps, they're running it in Kubernetes, but that's the point. They're running it in their Kubernetes, and you are not running it in a Kubernetes that you are responsible for. And this is with all the love in the world for the people who provide these services, but there's like AKS, EKS, Google's thing that they delete every now and then, and stuff. And I don't know what, but you still have to install a service mesh, anything that you want, the sidecars, all these sort of kinds of things. And then you will get to a point where there have been 3 versions of Kubernetes, and then the next one's just coming, and Microsoft say, the one you're on isn't going to be supported anymore, so you have to move to another one, and then you're given the choice, right? This is about 9 months into your Kubernetes hosting experience, and you have to either do the upgrade to the next version, like so from 1.18 to 1.19, which is going to be easier because there are going to be fewer breaking changes, but then you're going to have to do it again in 3 months and again in 3 months. Or you do a 3-version jump to the brand new one, and so then you only have to do it every 9 months, but with about a week of downtime while you fix all the broken dependencies and everything. Or any one of the, Railway, Vercel, something.
I'm blissfully ignorant of container orchestration.
Azure
I have never
Container
needed to
Apps.
orchestrate a container.
No,
I have people to do that for me.
exactly.
But you have actually, so I'm a big fan of static HTML. Like I love GitHub pages. Like I want this page on the internet, just go and do it.
We know a song about that.
We do know a song about that. You'll be able to hear that later today. But then, of course, behind the scenes, GitHub Pages is probably running on orchestrated containers. It's just they're doing all that stuff, so you don't have to touch it. But listening to you there just got me wondering, I wonder if you could build, like, what would be the opposite of Kubernetes? Like a website, like a little appliance about this big that has, like, power over Ethernet, so it draws power. So you plug it in on RJ45, and it's literally got, like, HTML hello world burned into ROM.
Yes.
So it doesn't even boot an operating system. It's just a solid state device that listens for HTTP on port 80 and says hello world. And I wonder how small you could get that.
The thing that I showed at the end of my talk, and I'm going to move the thing off here, is
Fret Badger.
Fret Badger. That's running on a Raspberry Pi 5 in my house. One Raspberry Pi 5 with 4 gigs of RAM, and I've got a Cloudflare tunnel, which was incredibly easy to set up. And yeah, it's a systemd service on my Raspberry Pi 5, and I can push a new version and then just say restart. And if my house internet goes off, then Cloudflare serves everything from the cache. And so, and it was costing me more per month in data transfer charges, egress charges, to host that in a cloud provider that I won't name because I'm making them sound bad. They're not bad, they're brilliant, they were fantastic, but it was costing me more per month to host it with them than the Raspberry Pi 5 cost to buy, including buying the SSD hat for it and the heatsink case, so it's passively cooled with this. The Raspberry Pi 5 is about this big, and then it's in this heatsink case that makes it about that big and weigh half a pound. But yeah, and it sits there and it runs quite happily because it's static HTML at the moment. There's a new version coming, which is Blazor WASM with server-side rendering. So it'll render the page quickly, but then it will download the WASM in the background and become interactive, which means you can sort of choose root notes and things. But yeah, that's it.
I was demonstrating.
That's the opposite of Kubernetes.
So this, the Blazor WASM or .NET now has this progressive rendering mode where you can put a component on your page that gets rendered on the server, and then you get the server rendered version for a couple of seconds while it downloads all the WebAssembly runtime stuff in the background and boots that. And the version of .NET that compiles and runs on WebAssembly and the version that compiles and runs on your own server, they cannot agree on how to format Scandinavian currencies properly, which is just one of those like weird things. Because yes, it's .NET all the way down. It's C#. It's the same code. But then if you format a price in krona, the server-side version does it with the number and then a space and then KR with a little dot on the end. The other one just does DKK or NOK. And I'm like, where's this coming from? Like, at what point, what's it delegating that to? Who in the whole world is responsible for telling the operating system what Danish kroner are supposed to look like today? Internationalization is one of those things where the operating system provides a certain amount of it.
Yeah.
And then languages provide a certain amount of it. And so if you have a genuinely cross-platform runtime, one of your massive headaches is, are we going to reinvent the wheel for all of this to make it consistent?
Yes.
Or are we going to delegate to the underlying operating system so that Mac users get what Macs would normally do, but that's maybe not what .NET normally does? And yeah, it's...
My other project, which is distracting me from the Blazor rewrite of Fret Badger, has Mac, Windows, and Linux desktop applications, and I want it to have iPhone and Android applications as well. And I was hoping, I mean, how long ago did Xamarin appear? It must be like 15
years.
15 years, yeah. And so it's been getting better and better and better for 15 years. Well, no, hang on, it got better and better and better for 10 years. And then Microsoft went, we're killing that. And now we have Maui, which is the sort of logical progression, but it's not like Xamarin version next.
How many of you folks out there are working on a Maui project right now?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Blistering success.
Yeah. So yeah, but my app, I need it to have what in iOS speak is called a share extension. So it's not part of your main app. It's like a little app that goes alongside your main app that you can then use. And it shows up when you say share this, it shows up as one of the icons there, like with WhatsApp and whatever else.
You should probably tell us all what your app is, unless it's still a top secret.
It's not top secret. It is so cross-platform AirDrop, or ephemeral Dropbox, but not just for files. So I have links that I find on my phone and I want to send them to my computer. And at the moment, what I do is I email myself, or I copy something on my phone and I want to paste it on my computer.
Do any of you have a WhatsApp channel you use to send pictures from your iPhone to your Windows PC? I have that, and it's just you talking to yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is like I think I'm removing 2 clicks from that workflow, and actually,
but it's not the clicks.
It's not the clicks.
It's the way you hate yourself as you click.
Yes.
It's the way you go, why am I complicit?
There must be a better way. There must be a better way. And I think I figured out what it is. And so I'm working on that. It has a very minimal cloud service. It has perfect forward secrecy encryption. So it's passphrase based elliptic curve encryption. And you can recreate the private key on any machine just by typing in the passphrase. And then the only thing you ever share with other people is public keys. Version 0.2, you'll be able to go, hey, here's my public key. Now you can send me stuff. And then version 3 you'll be able to point like webhooks, like GitHub webhooks and whatever at the thing. And then the server will be able to encrypt it as well. But the only person who will ever be able to decrypt any of it is you, because you have the private key. So yes, and it's going to be open source. You're going to be able to install it and run it yourself. Theoretically on a Raspberry Pi 5 in your house, but there will also be a cloud-hosted offering for minimal, because it really is. It's an Azure container app with a native AOT compiled API, and because it's native AOT, the problem with Azure container apps is you can say scale to 0 and please stop costing me money, and they will. But then when the first request comes in, you get like a 3-second lag for that person. Unless you compile your .NET Core API using native AOT, and then you get a no seconds lag, because it just goes bang, and I'm listening, and it's ready.
AOT in .NET is just formidably good. I've been using it on Rockstar, so the folks who were in the keynote yesterday, there's a lot of stuff that got cut. That was a 2-hour talk that had to be cut down to 55 minutes. And then I remembered I wanted to put a song at the end, so I had to cut another 10 out of it. So there's like an hour of stuff on the cutting room floor. And about half of it is stupid jokes about rock and roll and all that kind of stuff. But the other half is the sort of real stuff about building cross-platform compilation using .NET 8 and AOT and all of those kinds of things. And
I really hope Eli is trolling me and it hasn't just changed this morning.
I didn't hear it. Elliptic curve, that's not cool anymore. Elliptic curve is. But no, so now you can take so it's C# application, so the Rockstar interpreter is built in C#, and I can compile it down to let's have a look, because I've got a GitHub continuous integration pipeline here. I'm just going to see how big the binaries for that thing currently are. So Rockstar 2 actually has a releases page. Rockstar 2 is currently stuck in beta for the main reason that I've got this tool that generates the semantic versions, and I can't work out how to make it go from 0.9 to 2.0. That's why it's currently stuck.
That's because that's not semantic versioning, though, isn't it?
Yeah. So this the Rockstar native interpreter for Linux is 1.6 megs. And that you don't need .NET on your machine to run that. That's just an executable that if you've got Linux, you can run Rockstar without installing anything else. And that's so it's taken all of my code, and it's pulled in every bit of the .NET runtime which is necessary to support that code, and then pruned away everything else to just produce this one little binary. And then Mac OS is, so Windows is 1.7, and then Mac OS is twice as big, I guess because they got to round the corners or something.
No, it's because there's a bunch of stuff that's on Linux and Windows. On Linux, they can say the dependencies need to be there or something, and on Windows, they know what's there. And on Mac OS, they have a choice of bundling a little bit more stuff or telling people to install Homebrew and going and install some dependencies manually. And blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, no.
So, yeah.
Yeah. But no, I was just blown away. And, I've been working on .NET since Visual Studio .NET Beta,
Yes.
which I went and got on a DVD from Reading in the UK. And then, it's so exciting.
Visual Studio, mate.
Yeah.
So actually,
no number, just Visual Studio .NET.
The release of the first C# beta was the thing that made me discover Vim. Because I'd used VI as a junior developer in the 90s, and then left that behind. And then the first beta of C#, there was no Visual Studio, there was nothing. And so I was kind of like trying to do it in Notepad. This sucks. And then I thought, I wonder if you could still get VI. And then I found Vim, and it was like, yay! But no, the other thing that was about the C# native AOT, I saw somebody's got a GitHub repo that shows the binary sizes of Hello World.
I saw that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And so you've got like C, C++, Rust, D, a couple of other, but Zig, Nim, because that's still a thing. And then C#. And out of all, then everything after that was kind of like languages with bigger runtimes and garbage collectors and that sort of stuff. So Go and Kotlin and various other things, and Dart and just scroll back up, show Haskell.
What's Haskell?
Haskell. Yeah. So the next time someone asks you why you don't use Haskell and are you scared of monads, you say no, it's because disk space is expensive.
So there you go. That's the graph. That's Haskell in the middle there, nearly twice as big as Java, Kotlin, and Swift.
That's 11 megabytes. 11 megabytes of Haskell to print 12 characters to the screen.
Well, it can't have any side effects, so it has to run inside its own artificial universe.
I mean, yeah, that's
the only way to guarantee it's completely pure, is it has to instantiate from a hydrogen molecule thinking about itself really hard.
What if we're living in that universe?
It wouldn't be the first time.
A lot.
There was a lovely thing in here. I love this. The FAQ, what conclusions can I make about language X? And very specifically, the conclusion you can make is that Hello World done in a canonical way in language X, compiled with canonical settings, compiles to Y bytes. That's all there is to it. And of course, we're not going to do that. We're going to go out and say things like you shouldn't use Haskell because 11 megs for Hello World is ridiculous and disk space is really expensive. But they did at least try to stop us doing that. And I think that needs to be at least acknowledged with it.
And so, C#, the native AOT in C# and .NET, it's fantastic. It's an amazing achievement to take a language that was designed as a bytecode cross-platform thing and then reverse engineer a native compiler onto it. But it is still very much dependent on what packages you're using, what parts of the framework you're using. EF Core 9 is going to work a lot better with it than EF Core 8, which is to say, at all.
The big headache with it is if you've got anything like reflection, anything where the compiler doesn't know 100% for certain what code is going to end up running, you don't know what you can get rid of. You don't know what you can chop. So if you've got reflection, if you've got dynamic module loading, anything like that, it's like, well, we need to keep all of this in because we don't know whether you're going to use it. And so EF Core, they've basically taken out all the reflection and replaced it with code generation, haven't they? Yeah, source generation.
Yeah.
I looked at source generation and it gave me a headache, so I stopped.
It's damn sight easier than runtime code generation. Right?
Does anyone remember T4 templates? There's like this, because when I started putting Rockstar together, one of the things I wanted to do was, could I use a single package that generated all the language keywords and do some templating for that? And I ended up just writing all of the things by hand. But I was looking at code templating, and it's like, it was there, and then they sort of went, well, it's still there, but it works, but it doesn't work, but we're not sure, but it's kind of supported. And I could not get, it's that thing where you can't get it to work, but you also can't find anything authoritative saying that it doesn't work.
No.
Or that it's been deprecated.
No.
And you're just sort of like, I guess I just don't go in that room anymore. And you lock the door and da-da-da-da-da.
Unlike binary formatter in .NET 9, which is no longer deprecated. It's gone. Is anyone using binary formatter in a project at the moment? Yeah, it's gone.
Have a nice day. Thanks for coming.
Bye. What's it? Oh no, fun. So this, I only found this out recently. There are like chat groups and servers and various things where you're not allowed to use the word trans. And so T4 is the abbreviation that they use to get around it. And so then you come going, oh, trans templates, nice.
Yeah. This is an example. Are you folks familiar with the Scunthorpe problem?
Yes.
Because you're not allowed to have the bad letters in the bad order, even if they're in the middle of the name of the city where you actually live that's always been called that. And there's some fascinating stuff out there about, the various ways in which you're like, so Cialis was like a medication for erectile dysfunction that also occurs in the word specialist. And that caused so many problems on an email system I was maintaining about 15 years ago. It's like, why can't I send email that talks about specialist or specialism? And it takes us a week to get to that point of like, you've used bad words. Well, I haven't used any bad words. I just said, we're going to escalate this to a specialist team for diagnosis. And we're not talking about pills, we're talking about code. And eventually it's like,
how is that pronounced, Eli? Shittage.
No, K at the beginning.
Shittage. Right, yes. So yeah, Shittage couldn't get emails.
You might want to put that comment up on the screen, otherwise it's going to be incomprehensible to YouTube watchers.
That's a good point, isn't it? Yeah. There we go. Yes.
And I'm sure there are other people who have similar problems with their names.
And we're not even going to get into localization and encodings and Danish alphabetical order.
Peter Ibbotson on the binary formatter thing said Blowdart is very happy about this because Blowdart is almost single-handedly responsible for
.NET being
persuading
secure.
people to get, for .NET being secure at all, but also he was the one saying, we really need to stop that. And I think the point at which, if you don't understand why they have got rid of binary formatter and why it's a bad thing, it enables the same thing that happened with log4j. So log4j, one of the formats that you can send logs in is essentially Java's equivalent of binary formatter, which it then rehydrates on the server, including the code, and then it runs, and then you've compromised the servers.
What was so I recall a couple of years ago, there was a 0-day exploit for iOS, which was based on the fact that you could send someone an iMessage with a PDF. And their home screen, like before you even unlocked your phone, it would try and render a preview by firing up the full-blown PDF document engine, which contained vulnerabilities like arbitrary code execution as root. And so you could send someone a message that would root their phone before they'd even opened it.
Yeah.
And, that's something, well, and you're like, why would you need to see the PDF before you've opened the message? And somebody probably went, well, we've already got the library, the renderers are there, we might as well bake it in. What's the worst that can happen? And you're like, that 0-day remote code execution, that's the worst, that is literally the worst that can happen that you did there. Well done.
The thing that blows my mind, though, is so we got rid of Flash, which was a terrible source of vulnerabilities. And as soon as that had gone away, it's kind of like, okay, where's the next best source of vulnerabilities? What's Adobe's second most popular product? And so then it was PDF.
Yeah.
But how crap must Microsoft XPS be that we can have put up with 17 years of vulnerabilities in Adobe PDF and not just switched?
So my first sort of proper IT job was doing help desk for Arup, the engineering company. And we didn't use Microsoft. This is 1997, 98. And we used WordPerfect Office. So WordPerfect instead of Word, and Quattro instead of Excel, and GroupWise instead of Outlook, and Paradox instead of Access, and Envoy instead of Acrobat. They had their own...
Envoy?
Yeah. It's called Envoy.
Okay.
And it was a portable document solution, just like Acrobat. Exactly the same thing allows you to print a document to a virtual device that you get a file you can send to someone that they can then open up in a reader and look at it. And it was beautiful. And it all worked really nicely. And WordPerfect was amazing and lovely and wonderful. And then Corel bought it and tried to port it to Java, and that didn't work. So then they tried to port it to Linux, and they got quite a lot. They got close enough to porting it to Linux that Microsoft paid them to stop.
Yes.
They got to this weird point where Microsoft were like, we're going to give you a lot of money. And we're basically going to give you a lot of money so that WordPerfect and Quattro remain competitive. because then we can go to the Department of Justice and say that Office is not a monopoly. So here is like $25 million or something. And by the way, stop doing that Linux thing. We don't like it.
Yeah.
And so Corel Linux went, "Ooh," and just ended up as a weird footnote in history. But if any of you folks out there...
Until you installed it recently.
I got it up and running a couple of months ago. That was hard. That was fun. I got a whole YouTube thing about that. But if any of you folks are using Wine, which is not an emulator, because I said on a YouTube once that Wine was an emulator.
No.
Actually, I said it was an emulation layer.
It's a compatibility layer.
Wine is not an emulator.
Right.
Yeah.
It's it redirects Win calls to POSIX calls or something like that.
But if any of you folks have ever used Wine and done printing with it, you're using code that Corel wrote with Microsoft's money as part of Corel Linux way back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah. And that's all still there. Basically, the entire Wine Cups printing interface was written by Corel.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool.
Did you see the news yesterday?
No.
So Microsoft, well, yeah. Microsoft have donated, whatever, the source code for Mono, so the original cross-platform.net, they've actually donated it to the Wine project and said, here you go, you have this, because now Microsoft have replaced all Mono things in like Maui and everything else. It's all just part of .NET, .NET Core, whatever you call it. And they had Mono sitting there, and rather than just leave it sitting there to rot, they went, you have it. You can probably find some use for that.
I thought that Avalonia on Android and iOS still ran on top of Mono.
I don't think the latest version
does. Have they finally done
that?
Does anyone know?
Because
we had Mike James at our .NET group in London a couple of months ago talking about Avalonia, which is just amazing. Like Avalonia is genuinely wonderful.
That's what my new app is built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of stuff out there that still had this mono dependency layer because .NET proper wouldn't do what they need on iOS device. But yeah, they've swapped that out.
Because the other big ones with Mono is Unity.
Yeah.
The game engine, which was on Mono for a very long time, but they have been extremely busy trying to port that over to .NET 7 or 8 or whatever they're on. But yes, it is. So Mono is no longer a Microsoft project. It is now part of the Wine.
Do you know what it means?
Mono? It's a disease, isn't it?
No. It means monkey.
It means monkey.
It's the Spanish word for monkey.
What does Xamarin mean?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it means monkey, doesn't it? Or is it a kind of monkey?
Anybody? Tamarind.
It's right, it might be that.
Tamarind or tamarind, because one's a monkey and one's a spice, and I can never remember which one's which.
But because
if you mix them up, you get spicy monkey. And
yeah,
and that's an Ubuntu distribution.
And Miguel's first company was called Zimian,
yeah,
which is basically Simeon, but with an X.
Yes.
And he's basically just this guy who likes words that start with X and monkeys.
And he's working on
or
Swift now, isn't he?
As he calls them. Sorry?
He's working on Swift now, isn't he?
He is.
Miguel de Cata.
He's sort of seeing how far he can push Apple's App Store terms and conditions. The last I saw, he's building a version of Godot that runs on iPads, which is very definitely
what
not
is
allowed.
Godot?
Godot is it's an open source C# and it's got its own script game engine.
Yeah.
And it was the thing where when Unity said, we're going to charge you 20 cents every time a user installs your app from the App Store, even if you're giving it away for free, so you can make negative profits. And people went, okay, two things. A, does anyone know any good game engines? And B, Unity, please sack your CEO. He's a dick. And the CEO did actually step down, and Unity have done a very big kind of pivot and said, no, we are doubling down on games, because they were doing all this kind of 3D visualization for industry, and because growth. This is a whole other talk. Growth. Why can't you just have 12 people working in an office making enough money to pay those 12 people and the rent on the office? Why is that a bad thing? No.
Line go up.
Lidl.
Yeah.
Lidl, the supermarket, in the budget supermarket where you go to buy tea bags and washing up liquid and stuff that it doesn't matter that it's cheap, not coffee, obviously. So guess what Lidl are diversifying into?
Now, I have
cloud hosting.
I have to point out at this point that you're absolutely right. Lidl is a supermarket where you got to buy things like tea and toilet paper and stuff.
Yeah.
Last time I went to Lidl to buy milk, I came home with an angle grinder. Because Lidl, do you have Lidl in Denmark? So Lidl is this German chain that spread, and like they sell groceries, but then they got this thing in the middle where they have the stuff that's only there this week. So you have to buy it because it won't be there next week. And so if you go into Lidl and they're like, oh, they got welding masks, and you're like, I might need a welding mask.
People on YouTube, if you think going to Lidl for milk and coming back with an angle grinder is a good thing, then leave a like. If you think it's a bad thing, then subscribe. You guys here in the room will just do a show of hands. Who thinks going to Lidl and coming for milk and coming back with an angle grinder is awesome? And who thinks it's kind of suboptimal? Okay.
I did get milk.
Yes.
Like I did get the thing I went for, but then I was like, oh, they got a bench grinder. Oh, look at that.
Do you know the main difference that's causing a difference of opinion there?
What?
Marriage.
Yeah.
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 If I went for milk and came back with an angle grinder, I would then have to go to the hospital to have that angle grinder removed.
And now we have a problem because you know what tool you use to remove an angle grinder?
Yeah.
Yeah, another angle grinder, and then you have to go back to Lidl.
And then you come back with milk, which is so it all worked out in the end. Oh, that was
I
a
love
weird
Lidl.
tangent.
I love Lidl dearly.
Yes,
yeah.
It's a great place to go and pick up cheap stuff.
You're going to get some salad and you come out going, I will never need tweezers again. I have all the tweezers now. Lidl are doing cloud hosting.
Lidl are now doing cloud hosting, which I think it's, so they built essentially their own private cloud, and they did it in the way that, I mean, I've worked for 3 different companies in the last 10 years who thought they could do a better job than Kubernetes. And I mean, the fact, okay, so I was kind of saying you don't need Kubernetes at the start. I don't want to say, I wasn't saying Kubernetes is a bad thing. Kubernetes is a spectacular piece of technology. Kubernetes has done for kind of distributed applications and hosting what Linux did for operating systems. It is really, really good. I'm not saying it's bad, it's just that you don't need it. However, what you definitely shouldn't do is write your own container orchestration system. You should just, there are simpler ones out there, or just use a container hosting or whatever. But lots of places do sort of go, oh no, Kubernetes is complicated, so crack out C++. And I think Lidl have obviously done that and got it to the point where it works. Yeah. And then they've gone, well, we use an awful lot of electricity in opening hours when we're running all the point of sale and all that sort of stuff. But then we go down to half capacity. So why shouldn't we sell that extra capacity that we're using, rent it to people for running overnight batch jobs and stuff?
There's this idea that I've talked about a lot over the years, which is that if you're doing any kind of development in tech, everything that you write should be something you can sell.
Yeah.
And if you ever find that you're writing something you can't sell, then you should just go and buy that and focus on the stuff you can sell. And so, you know, if Lidl got to the point where they were like, we could solve these problems in-house for less money than we are spending on Azure or Google Cloud or whatever, at that point, it's like, well, if we're going to solve them, we may as well build a solution that we can use to generate revenue instead of just save money.
Yeah.
So I'd actually kind of see that. Like, if you have got to a point where it makes sense for you to solve the problem, you may as well sell the solution. Because otherwise, you're maintaining something that doesn't, like, the more usage it gets, it doesn't generate revenue. Because the point about saving money is that when it gets down to 0, you can't save any more than that. So the line can't go up. The line is now flat, and the line ain't going to go any flatter no matter what you do with it.
But
so
I'm concerned now, though, because I was thinking I might look at Lidl hosting because I assume it's going to be cheap. But now I'm worried that I'll go to get some hosting and come back with the Godfather trilogy in UHD, HDR, and Dolby Atmos. Well, that's a problem because it's cheaper to buy the trilogy together, but The Godfather 3 is one of the worst films ever made.
I have never seen any Godfather films.
Okay. In that case, The Godfather duology, there isn't a third film. It's denying sequels. Who has the sequel that they deny existence of? And why is it The Matrix? Actually, I don't need to ask why it's The Matrix.
The Matrix was a great movie, and then the others were, And then The Matrix Resurrections, I have now tried to watch 5 times. And even if I've slept really well and had 3 espressos that morning, that film will send me to sleep before Trinity gets on a motorbike.
Yeah.
It's like my can't sleep on airplanes. Oh, look, they have Matrix Resurrections. I'll put that.
Willow.
Guaranteed.
What's that thing that your mum's got where she can't she's terrified of things that are made of bees.
That's
Trichophobia. Trichophobia.
made of
So,
bees.
yes. When you have a large object made of lots of small objects that's moving, there are people who get completely, and like, I mean, can't look.
Because like being afraid
sort of
of
thing.
something made of bees is not a phobia. It's a perfectly, it's like having a phobia of murderers. It's a perfectly reasonable, I don't like that it's made out of bees.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's at the end of Ralph Breaks the Internet, lots of little Ralphs get together to make one big Ralph, and she nearly threw up into her popcorn. It was not nice. So yes, and then one of the characters in the Matrix Resurrections is just that constantly through the entire film.
Yeah.
And so if you suffered from trichophobia, you would have lasted 10 minutes, and then you would have had to leave because there's this dude who is made of like robot bees, I suppose. And it's the reason you say bees is because they swarm, and you get those people who have like beards of bees and stuff.
That's
I'm going to go with these, so I'll stop.
The largest beard of bees. And the way they do it, they get a little cage and they put the queen bee in the little cage, and then they glue that onto your chin. And then you just stand real still, and all the other bees in the colony, they come back and they just and there's this picture in the Guinness Book of Records I had when I was a kid of a guy with a beard of bees, like down to here.
Down to there.
And it's just bees everywhere.
And it's basically how long can you stand that still for?
And that is still a better story than Matrix Resurrections.
It is.
It's a guy standing still for 4 hours till he gets a beard made out of bees.
Yeah.
The end.
They use French poodles. They used to use those as hunting dogs.
They did?
They did. So they would let the coat grow out until it was like this big fluffy thing. And then they would dye it dark green so it looked like a bush. And then the poodle would go out into the woods.
I'm honestly not sure if he's doing a bit right now.
And sit very, very, very still and wait. And eventually a pheasant would come and make its nest in the poodle. And then the pheasant would wait until the poodle would wait until the pheasant had gone to sleep, and then tiptoe very carefully back.
So let me get a like if you believe him, and a retweet if you think he's making this up.
Go and look on Wikipedia about 5 minutes after this talk ends. I find my laptop.
Wikipedia, the online encyclopedia that anyone can edit to win a bet in a pub.
Yes.
Do you know about the Scots language Wikipedia?
No.
So, Wikipedia can be like they've crowdsourced translating it into all kinds of languages and dialects, and there's like a simple English version. It turned out that there was Wikipedia in Scots, which is a language or a dialect, depending what kind of fight you're trying to start here. But, people speak Scots as a language, and somebody had built the Scots language Wikipedia, and it turned out that it was a teenager in America who had never been to Scotland and was just translating it into what he thought it would sound like in like an Irvin Welsh book.
Yes.
And he'd written like 12,000 articles.
Yeah.
Like the entire of Scots language Wikipedia was this kid going, I think it should probably sound like that, don't you?
Because I remember I read Train Spotting, and if you read Train Spotting for like 4 hours, and then someone comes in and says, "What are you doing?" you will answer them in a Scottish accent because it is written. And I thought it was written in a Scottish accent. It's not. It's written in Scots.
Yeah.
It is actually written in the Scots language. And it's that very strange thing. It's kind of like the Scandinavian languages. So you can have a Danish person talking to a Swedish person, and the Danish person is talking Danish, and the Swedish person is talking Swedish, and you can kind of understand each other because they're sort of close, but sort of also
Mark says
completely
authoritatively
different.
speaking neither of these languages, but
Yeah.
someone gave him a stage and a microphone, and that makes him an expert.
And told me a thing once.
So they did
and
The
Scots
Bridge,
is
the
kinda
TV
like that.
show, was half the dialogue for that was in Danish and the other half was in Swedish.
Yes.
Because it kept going between Malmö and Copenhagen.
Yes.
And of course, if you don't speak either of them, you just watch the whole thing with subtitles on.
Yeah.
And you completely miss out on this wonderful kind of subtlety of it all. So,
And they don't worry about Norwegian because neither of them talk to the Norwegians. And apparently in Sweden, the Muppets character, the Swedish chef, is called the Norwegian chef. Is that right? Yeah. Nice.
I mean, there's the whole thing about you go to any country and like, what country do you make jokes about?
Wales. Yes, and in Australia it's New Zealand.
And in New Zealand it's Tasmania and all the
Yeah.
way down. And so there's got to be someone at the bottom of the pecking order, like a bunch of people in Antarctica going, we don't have anybody.
No.
Like we're right at the bottom of the global humor of pecking order of who makes jokes about who. So
Like Alexander Beetle. who was Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
Bringing it back to Winnie the Pooh.
Yes.
And there was the expedition
Nice
to
callback.
the North Pole,
Yes.
and Christopher Robin turns around and shushes Pooh, and Pooh turns around and shushes Piglet, and Piglet turns around and shushes Eeyore, and it goes all the way down the line to Alexander Beetle,
The
who was
smallest of
so
the
upset
woodland
at having
animals.
nobody to say shush to that he ran away and lived with an aunt. And yes, there is somebody somewhere who is the butt of all the jokes. Yeah. That's
Alexander
fun.
Beetle of international humor.
Eli's dad dyed a sheep green for a prank when he was at university. And Adele says, I used to dye my granddad's hunting poodles when I was a small child. Thank you for your support, Adele. Yes. See, it's not just me. It's a mad Australian lady as well. Oh, one of my favorite mad Australian ladies.
So let's bring it back. What else have you seen here at the Copenhagen Developers Festival?
I mean, so it's kind of, so last year was like a dry run.
Yeah.
And so they had some music acts and stuff. This year, somehow, somebody managed to book Matt Parker from the YouTube channel Stand
Who was here
Up
for Matt
Maths.
Parker last night? Yeah! Woo!
And it was kind of intimidating for me because I generally try and be funny. And it's very hard for me to tell how it's working because generally I'm doing it at tech conferences and it's either to Scandinavian or Lithuanian audiences. And, you know, they're renowned for their demonstrative response to humor and laughing out loud. And so sometimes you're going to like, I think they're enjoying, nobody's leaving and stuff. And then you get all greens. But no, Matt was very funny. And I actually wasn't doing stand-up maths. He was more talking about his rubbish Python code. And when you're prepared to get up on stage and admit that you wrote something in Python that took 32 days to run, and then when you told your YouTube viewers about it, one of them got it down to 6 milliseconds, and then eventually somebody got it to under a millisecond. 32 days, like a month, down to a millisecond. And this is because terrible, terrible Python code, but it did the job and he didn't need that laptop for a month, down to like ridiculously optimized hand-coded CUDA machine code running on a parallel GTX 4090s or something.
So I was doing Advent of Code a couple of years ago. And one of the things that Matt said in his talk is about how quickly can you figure out how long your program is going to take? Because if you know how long it's going to take, then you know whether it's worth optimizing or not. And I did one of the Advent of Code solutions, but I did it in Amstrad Logo running on a CPC 464 emulator, and then had a race to see if I could re-implement it in C# before the Amstrad emulator finished it.
And did you?
It was neck and neck.
Ooh.
Like literally, I ran the C# thing, and as it was running, and it took about 2 or 3 seconds and popped back a number, the Amstrad Logo one said, here's the same number. And the fun part, if anyone remembers, it was the one where you have a ship and it goes north and then west and then east and then south, and so I did it just by literally moving the turtle around the logo grid and seeing where it ended up, and that was the answer. And by the time it finished doing that, and I was like, I could have just sat and watched it, just do that, and I'd have got the same answer in the same amount of time.
Can I have to say, that is a cracking example of using the right tool for the job. Yeah. Because, why go to all the trouble of like figuring out coordinates or making it draw when there is a programming language out there that is literally designed to do the thing that you're being challenged to do.
We got any Logo developers in the house? Logo's excellent.
Yes, so bring back the actual turtles.
Yeah, I was about to say exactly that.
Yeah.
Like Logo on a screen, woo. Logo with an actual thing running around the floor of the classroom with a pen that you can pick up and put down, you can draw shapes with it. Fantastic.
Yes, especially if it is just the floor of the classroom and you're just using like dry white markers so that when the cleaner comes in with the buffer, it will just go.
It's just occurred to me that now that we have drones, you could do 3D Logo. You could literally have north, south, east, west, up, down, and a bunch of kids sitting around the classroom.
You just broke my brain.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I saw David Whitney's talk yesterday about building game engines, which I really, really enjoyed. And there's something, the demo, if any of you was in David's talk, you got the game I Am Jam, where you play a little orange that has to make it into the marmalade, and it wins when it becomes marmalade. and it's got the mice running backwards and forwards. And I love it. Like the art on that and the sort of pixelation style and the gameplay physics and everything is wonderful. And I went up to chat to him because we had an idea on the show the other week about doing a game jam where we're going to spend a weekend and you've got to make a game, but you've got to make a game which is a mashup of 2 existing games. So the idea that we had for this was we're going to make a game where one of you is playing Tetris from the top and the other one is playing Breakout from the bottom of the same pit. So one of you is bouncing a ball off the bottom of the blocks and the other one is dropping the blocks from the top.
Yeah.
And I just thought this could be fun. And then we started talking about, what other combinations of games you could mash up to make a 2-player game where you're not playing the same game. So you're like one of you is playing Mario Kart, but the other one's playing SimCity.
Yes.
And so one of you is building roads and the other one's racing around them, all these kind of things. You folks got any great ideas, you think, for two games that would be beautifully mashed together? Think about it. Let us know.
Yeah.
Put a comment on. Because I think we should do this. I think we should actually get some people together for a long weekend and do an actual proper game jam.
Yeah.
Open it up and see what we come up with.
That's a great idea. I have been, I recently reconnected. So Layla, surname's gone.
Porter,
thank you, is here and is speaking about something. But she is streaming her adventures in Unity and building a game in Unity. And I hadn't been on Twitch for ages. And then I kind of went, I should log into Twitch because I might stream something. And then she happened to be streaming at the time. And it was just this fantastic problem. So there's a thing called culling in game engines, where if the thing that you're drawing is not visible to the camera, don't draw it. Because what they used to do is they'd draw the thing furthest away and then draw something else in front of it. Now you can't see the thing furthest away, so why did you draw it? But also, anything that's outside your 150-degree field of view also doesn't get drawn. So that's fine, that's great, except when you've got real-time sun that goes up and comes down, because it's like one of those strategy, go walk the dog and then have your breakfast and then do this and that sort of thing.
Sorry, what strategy involves having breakfast and walking the dog?
So
where's the strategy?
You're assigning agents to take care of some of these things and stuff.
Oh, okay,
so
all right.
It's like automating things.
Yeah.
But it's got a day-night cycle, and so the sun eventually comes down and it's behind the houses on the street where you live, and then you turn away and the house stops being rendered, and the shadow that was there goes away, and you're kind of like, where's the light come from all of a sudden? So you turn round and then the shadow comes back. So yes, that's what Layla was battling with, which makes some of the problems I've been dealing with in code lately just seem very simple indeed.
There's a fantastic video that I stumbled across a couple of weeks ago. There's an error in Doom because John Carmack typed in pi from memory and he got the 9th decimal place wrong. And someone found this and went, pi's wrong. And John was like, yeah, my bad. I should have looked it up, whatever, it didn't matter. But then somebody went, well, what else can we change it to? And they basically took the Doom source code and they just saw how many different wrong values of pi would compile. And so they set, pi to 3.14, yeah, that works fine. Pi set to 3, like you get things where as you come around the corner, the walls kind of shudder a little bit because they don't, like all the geometry gets thrown off. And then they're like, can we make pi equal to 2?
Yeah.
Pi equal to 1, pi equal to -1. And they had this whole kind of chart of all these different values of pi. And about half of them, so about 3/4 of them would compile but then not run. And about half of them would compile and then run. And then the gameplay was just completely wrong, like horribly disfiguring. Just walls that aren't where walls are supposed to be. Anyway, the video's on YouTube. You should look it up. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So,
so this is not that your name is weird, it's that I can't see. Laus Scat Nielsen has suggested Dungeon Keeper versus Doom, which I can totally see.
Oh, that would be
work.
excellent.
I would play that. I just thought miniature golf and missile command. So you got one person who's basically just going dock, and then somebody over there going, they fired another one. So that would work.
The whole idea of matching up different games. Hunter S. Thompson, the guy who wrote Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, was great friends with Bill Murray. And Bill Murray was a keen golfer. He loved golfing, and apparently he used to say to Hunter, come and play golf. And I was like, I don't want to play golf. Like that's not my sport. I don't do it. And Bill says to him, well, what do you do? He's like, I like to shoot skeet, like clay pigeon shooting. And he said, all right, we'll do that. You bring your gun. I'm going to bring my golf clubs. I'm going to play around the golf. And if you can shoot my ball, you win the hole. And they did this. And Bill Murray, being rich and famous actor and everything, basically got his golf club to close the course to everyone else. So he and Hunter, we have a hand.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. How about Space Invaders and Super Mario? So,
Space Invaders and Super Mario, yeah.
No, like, let's say, like, if you shoot all the invaders, you play at 1 minute.
Yeah.
Play at 2, whatever, and you manage the level the other guy did. Or you can, like, make it so, let's say, the guy loses and, like, money loses stuff, but the invaders just, mess him up.
So Mario's jumping across the invaders, but you're trying to shoot the invaders out. Yeah. Yeah, that would work.
Yeah, that would work. There you go.
The game mashup.
We do have to do this now.
Yeah. But the other sports mashup that I would love to do, and it's not a computer gaming thing, it's a real thing, is I want to do free diving Scrabble. I want to go to a swimming pool, and I want a magnetic Scrabble set on the bottom of the pool. And so for as long as you can hold your breath, you can think about your move. So you dive in, you swim down to the bottom of the pool, you got your goggles on so you can see the board, and you're down there, you got like a little weight to hold on to so you don't float away. And basically you're down there going, yeah, I could get a 7-letter word, but also I can't breathe anymore and I'm starting to black out. And so you play dog and you go back up to the top. And as soon as you surface, the other person has to get back in the pool. So you could also kind of screw them up just by playing really simple words so they don't have time to get their breath back before they have to get back in the water. I think that would be fantastic.
I could simplify that.
Yeah.
So you're both at the bottom of the pool.
If your simplification is just holding your breath until you pass out, I'm not interested.
No. So you're both at the bottom of the pool, weighted down, so you don't have to keep going up and down. So it'll make it a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
And there is a tube with air, and when it's not your turn, you get the tube. And then when you're finished,
so you don't get oxygen until you've played your
word, and then it's kind of like, right, it's your go, and there you go, and then
You know what? That's too easy. I think we should do that, but it's Monopoly. Or Risk.
The money would get.
You don't get any oxygen until you've invaded China.
I'll tell you what, you know what? The end of every game of Risk I've ever played, you just end up with somebody who's got like the world's entire population of armies in, is it like Spain or somewhere? And then the other one's got the whole of Africa. And everyone else is just going, right, we'll go to the pub. And I assume playing underwater would probably put a stop to that kind of thing. So I'm all for it.
Underwater Risk is the worst idea anybody has ever had. Please nobody do it, and then tell the police that Dylan and Mark gave you the idea on their podcast. That would be terrible.
That is a winner. I'm sorry.
Animal Crossing and Assassin's Creed.
Kill Tom Nook! Kill Tom Nook! Yes, was that you? Nice. That's my eldest, my now adult child. Yes, no, I would very happily jump across the rooftops of Animal Crossing and kill the lot of them.
Yeah. I mean, the whole game mashup thing just has so many possibilities.
Yeah. And some of them could be very, very simple, and some of them could be very, very. And actually, quite a lot of games are just mashups of other games.
Grand Theft Auto and Police Quest.
Yes.
So one of you is going around nicking cars, and the other one's in like a Sierra point-and-click adventure game where you're trying to work out where the cars went.
I very nearly wrote Grand Theft Auto.
You did?
Yeah, and about 4 years before DMA Design wrote the original top-down Grand Theft Auto. So there was a Blues Brothers game.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember it.
You remember the Blues Brothers game? You remember the driving bit where you're getting chased by hundreds of police cars?
You know the weirdest thing about the Blues Brothers game is in France, they changed the Blues Brothers to be a fox. And it was called Titus the Fox. And it was the same level design, same engine, same animation, same everything. But they couldn't get the license for the Blues Brothers intellectual property in Europe. And so they went, we'll just completely take out the entire whole thing that it used to be the Blues Brothers. And
but no, I went and got the Blues Brothers game for the Commodore Amiga.
Yep.
Very much looking forward to the driving section, and there wasn't one. And it's kind of like you've made a Blues Brothers game with no driving. This is the best bit of the Blues Brothers. All the cars. So I was working with a guy, and we started in Amiga 68,000 assembler building a game, and we actually got a fair way into it, and then I got sent on contract to one place, and he got sent on the contract to another place, and there was no internet. So there was no web, and there was no sort of easy internet. And so we never finished it. But the idea was that you would start driving, and then every time you did something bad, the police would start chasing you. But also, if you drove through a graveyard and knocked graves over, then the ghosts of the people whose graves you'd knocked over would come out and start chasing you. And we did eventually run into that thing. And it suddenly occurred to me that, like with Unity, you know, the dots thing that allows you to have like 1 million enemies, I might finally be able to write that game. And so I'm going to call it Grand Theft Auto meets Blues Brothers. That's my two games.
I would play a Blues Brothers themed Grand Theft Auto, like a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Rene suggested Farming Simulator versus Goat Simulator.
Yes, which is kind of similar to Harvest Moon and Untitled Goose Game.
I'm just thinking of the number of games now that would be brilliant if you mashed them up with Untitled Goose Game. Like Assassin's Creed, you're thinking, honk. You know, that would be Civilization. Like you've got to the final level, you're just about to launch like your space probe to go and colonize the galaxy. Honk, and one of the fuel lines has been ripped off and your spaceship explodes and everything. Yeah.
It's one of the things that I really liked about the concept for the Oasis in Ready Player One.
Yeah.
Was that it's just this one big shared space, and then corporations can like buy planets and build games on planets and stuff. But there is every possibility that you could be just about to unlock the Void Chickens in Stardew Valley, and then an Imperial Star Destroyer just crashes into your farm and wipes it out entirely because it's a shared space. And
I do remember thinking, you know, the whole, you remember NFTs, right? When that was the future and a really good idea. And I was like, no, we're talking about digital assets that you can own and you take them with you from one environment to the other. And I'm like, the first person takes a BFG 10K into Animal Crossing is going to prove why this is a really terrible idea that we just should not be doing at all. And they're like, oh no, but it'll be different. I'm like, what would it be? What would the BFG 10,000 gun look like in like idiomatic Animal Crossing? So fortunately, it turned out that it was a scam and NFTs don't actually do anything.
The other thing with that is kind of, it's, if someone's got a gold-plated Cybertruck, which I believe somebody is giving away as a prize in a sweepstake if you buy their crap.
Katy Perry bought a Cybertruck and tweeted a picture of her with her new Cybertruck. And the first reply on Twitter was, wow, imagine marrying Russell Brand not being the most embarrassing thing you did.
I've forgotten what I was saying about gold-plated Cybertruck.
Gold-plated Cybertruck. Somebody has one.
Oh, yes. So, right. If you have a gold-plated Cybertruck, if somebody else wants to go, oh, I too have, the only option they've got really is either to buy a Cybertruck and gold-plate it or to buy a gold-plated Cybertruck. Whereas if you're in virtual reality, let's say Meta Horizons, and Elon has figured out that you can sell NFTs of gold-plated Cybertrucks for like 1/10 of the price of the actual thing, it really isn't that difficult to go into Blender and make a gold-plated Cybertruck. And if the blockchain system that they're using to do this is an open API, then you can copy everything.
Yeah.
And so you will just, you literally have cheap Chinese knockoffs of gold-plated Cybertrucks.
Which of course only has 8 polygons,
Tiger.
even in real life.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
folks, we're almost out of time.
We are out of time.
We got 1 second left. We are out of time. Look
Any
at that.
questions? No. Good.
So folks, thank you so much for coming along. It's always fun doing this because it's always, you know, completely unscripted. And when we get comments in the chat and everything, it's really going. So thanks everyone for coming along and participating. We are going to get out of the way. We got one more talk coming up on the main stage here. And then this evening, we are going to be on the stage with the Line Breakers, taking apart all of your favorite songs and putting them back together, because there's all these songs about love and there aren't nearly enough songs about JavaScript, and we're going to set out to fix that. So that's what we're going to do. And yeah, any questions or anything, come and say hello. We are going to be around. We're here tomorrow. We're here until the end of the week. In the meantime, folks, thank you so much, everybody, for
Sorry,
coming.
can I just ask one thing, though? So if you are coming to the party tonight and you're going to be doing stuff here, after the next talk has finished, if you wouldn't mind coming in and helping to move the chairs to the side, because we don't want people sitting down when there's a band playing. And we are actually...
That this is a software development event in Denmark. We are still intending that people are going to dance. That's the challenge we've set ourselves.
Yeah.
Who's up for it?
One person at the back. Hello, yes.
It's all right. One person just needs to start it. We got someone dancing down the front. It'll all be absolutely fine. There's free alcohol, by the way. I think that will help.
Look,
so,
we got to get off because we've got the next
yes.
person set up. Thank you, YouTube.